Hello everyone, I'm Rafael Gutierrez, and today I'm going to be talking about a superhero named Iron Fist and comparing him to real people in martial arts. I am going to use mostly Okinawan karateka for a lot of reasons. One is these are not going to be young men that I'm going to show you doing what you would expect a superhero to do, but rather men who are even older than I am. Some of these men are actually in their 80s who are phenomenal martial artists. Now, the reason I'm going to use these is this: a lot of people get in their mind that, well, these legends aren't necessarily true. Now, if you watch the video on the Arakaki's toe kick, I was able to show that there is a possibility that some of these legends are true. Now, the other thing that happened is there were a lot of people are interested in seeing how advanced the human body can actually get, how much power it can develop. And so with these older gentlemen, I can show you someone who is what we would consider a senior doing things that an 18-year-old would not be able to do. Now, the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use the science behind it to tell everything. And I want to tell a story which I remember someone telling me once, and that was told, which explains a lot of these little things that we all hear of someone going into the mountains and training with a demon, or going to learning special techniques which destroy. And the story is but a long time ago there was an old master who did have his personal students, and people wanted to make a name for themselves. So a young man went to the master and challenged him. Well, the master, looking at the man, smiled and said, well, before we do this, we will actually set up a date 2 weeks from now, and we're going to meet here. But I should warn you that I am a master of, I can't remember the name, so I'll say hot and fiery. Well, the young man heard this, and he didn't know anything about him, so he started asking around, what's this hot and fiery? And people, who said, the old master, well, I heard that he once hit someone and their heart exploded, and he went to someone else. And every other person that, as they talked about this old master and what he was able to do, it was more and more fantastic, to the point where the young man started losing sleep. He started wondering what this hot and flashy was, and it just kept on eating at him, and he started looking around to see what people were doing, and he tried to convince himself, no, it couldn't be that, it couldn't be this. But as he heard more stories, his imagination just took off. At the end, when the day came, the young man came to the teachers and apologized for challenging him. He said, I didn't realize a lot of this, and I don't think I'm ready to fight someone as great as you. And he went to the next town. On hearing this, one of the old master's students came up to him and says, Master, can you teach me this hot and flashy? And the old master says, yes, but you're going to have to go to the store and pick up some items. Give him a shopping list. The young man went, picked them up, and he thought maybe this had to do with rubbing stuff on your hands, or just a lot of thinking of what this is going to be. And when he got home, he saw this huge pot. The old master started throwing stuff in. No, you don't want to throw this spice in now. You want to throw it in later. And eventually, he put everything in the pot. And so the student sat there trying to figure out what was going on. And the old master grabbed 2 bowls, served himself one, and his student one. And the student ate, figuring, okay, this must be something that brings out the special power within you. As he's eating, he's wondering what his teacher's going to show him. What this hot and flashy thing that he was going to show him was. And he thought about how the soup was spicy, and maybe the spices were going to activate something in him. As they finished the soup, the master took the bowls and told the student to wash them. And the student said, well, when are you going to teach me this hot and flashy? And he said, well, I did. You remember when we were making the soup? That's the name of the soup. The reason I tell this is a lot of times people make up their own stories based on what they hear. Some of the stories may be true, so like Arakaki's toe kick. Other stories may just be legends that people make up because they hear one thing. And the other thing is, a lot of martial artists know I mean, you ask your teacher. We all know that people have a ridiculous idea of what martial arts are. I mean, you have some people who think that martial artists can walk up walls and shoot fire bolts from their butts. But the idea is, in martial arts, we can use these ideas that people think about us and use it to our advantage. You think about it. Imagine if someone managed to get in your head enough to convince you that he was going to make your heart explode. If you can convince someone of this, you can actually knock them out without touching them. Hello again. So I'm going to talk about Iron Fist first. And what I'm going to use is I'm going to use Wikipedia. So Iron Fist is supposed to be a human who grew up in a mystical city in the Himalayas and ended up learning martial arts after he was adopted by them when his parents died. So he actually studied martial arts while growing up in Kunlun. Now, one of the things that ends up happening is he ends up training so much that he ends up getting a lot of powers, and eventually he ends up killing a dragon and dipping his hands into the dragon's heart, and that gives him these special powers which he can move his ki around and light up his hands. Now, I've never met anyone who can actually light up their hands, so that will be something a little different. But what we do have is, we have his powers. Iron Fist can harness his spiritual energy to augment his physical and mental capabilities to the peak of human levels. People can reach human levels without having to build up their ki. Watch any Olympic athlete. By focusing his ki into his hands, he can tap superhuman energy, temporarily rendering his fists superhumanly powerful, immune to pain and injury. However, this process is mentally draining. Okay. So his ki builds up this power, and it leaves him drained. But I want you to pay attention to this gentleman here, and just see how he can use his fists. Iron Fist can heal himself of any injury or illness and project this power or healing onto others. Okay? Herbs, spices, different things. You can actually, medicine, you can actually shorten the duration of certain diseases pretty quickly and easy. His entire body is oriented to combat, enabling him to adapt to any environment with minimal exposure. Okay, now I'm going to show you certain people, and here, check this out. Would you say these people's bodies are oriented to combat, enabling them to adapt to any environment?
You should have felt the power of his hit. Just holding it. I mean, I've held on to 350-pound men in football, And I could barely hold the bat when his wrist came through there. It came through with such power and force and just shattered this thing like a toothpick. Unbelievable.
In a fight, this move could easily generate enough force to crush the soft tissue of an opponent's throat, or even fracture a vertebrae.
I hope you actually see is that there are some karateka who can actually do everything that Iron Fist can. They actually do it in real life without having to build up their ki necessarily. There are some people who say, yes, I build up my ki by meditating, and that's how I can do this. But there's a lot of people who will tell you it's like they do it based on training. Now, how much training does someone need? The answer is a lot. But if you're dealing with someone who is a multimillionaire, if we take the Iron Fist again, who can afford to go to anywhere, can go interdimensionally. You don't have to go interdimensionally if you're a millionaire to train. You can go to Okinawa, you can go to Brazil, you can go to Los Angeles even, you can go to San Diego and meet me if you want. But, joke, the last one, sorry. But the idea is, it's not necessarily I'm a magical being and so I can do this. You can do stuff because of training. And that is one of the big things. The other thing that people forget is, a lot of times people see injuries and they can not understand why they acted a certain way. Sometimes you'll hear people, but it was such a tap, it wasn't really big. I mean, some of you who do tournaments may have actually seen someone accidentally tap someone, not full force punch, but just tap, and they just drop. Reason is the biomechanics behind it. Now, I can go into every biomechanic, which I am doing, but what I wanted to show you is more how, yes, there is this mysticism that people love, but the reality is so much more interesting. Next time, I think I am going to talk about pretty much the effects of certain types of cells in the bones, which will tell you why certain people can hit rocks and not have their arms break. But the other thing is, there have already been videos I've made on why we want to punch a certain way so your hand doesn't break. Now, if you look at this, you have people who are actually breaking bats with their bare hands. They are able to do this because of their training. It's not a special, I took a special pill or have a special ring or, dip my hands in dragons, but rather it's a training. It's probably a lot of these people in the past that we hear about how they did these magical feats. Maybe they could have done it. I mean, you look at gymnasts, you look at modern athletes, you can see that they can do things that most normal humans can't. And so with this, what I'm saying is, there is a level that you can take the human body, and it doesn't have to be magic. It can be something as simple as training, and how training will affect even the cells within your body to react a certain way. I am going to make a couple of videos on cells and how they react. I don't know if I'm going to put it in karate unless people want it, but they will be here so you can get more of an understanding of what I'm talking about. The other thing is I am coming out with a new book, which is, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a lot of videos on how to use this book to learn human biology, the anatomy of the human body mostly, initially. And if you want to understand more, I will make the videos available free. I would recommend the book because that way you can actually fill in and see what I'm talking about and have a reference that you can use anywhere. But enough self-promotion. I hope you enjoyed this video.